to my kings, queens, and in-betweens. I'm Valerie and welcome to my channel, The Bookish Valkyrie. So today's video is a quick wrap-up of my reading year in 2023 along with my top 10 reads for the year. I read 161 books and that came to 4,745 pages. The most pages in a month that I read was for November. I read 5,900 pages, and then the most books that I read in 1 month was December, which was 27 books. The longest book that I read in 2023 was this chunkster, Lore. It has 619 pages, and honestly, it's just pretty. Look at that cover. I love it. The top 5 genres that I read were LGBTQIA+, romance, fantasy, contemporary, and sci-fi. And my 3 most read authors for the year were Martha Wells, DJ Jameson, and Patricia Briggs. And my average rating for the year was 4.5, so really high. I do tend to have a high average rating, mostly because I do so much rereading that I am pretty much only rereading books that are in the 4 to 5 range. Plus, I also have a tendency to DNF a book if I don't think it's going to be a 3 or above. So I don't have very many low ratings to bring that number down. So time to get into my top reads of the year, starting with my 3 honorable mentions. I have The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. I really loved this book. I saw some reviews of people who didn't enjoy it. If you didn't like You've Got Mail, you probably won't enjoy this. There is definitely a nod. There are some more than nods to You've Got Mail, including a scene straight out of the movie. But it does have a lot of originality to it. The world building is completely fantastical. There is a lot of kind of the urban fantasy feel of it along with high fantasy. I don't really know where to put it in that spectrum, but it's got like an Old West feel to it, and then definite fantasy. There are zombies, there are gods, there is spirits that run around looking for bodies to inhabit, and that's where the zombies come from. And there are critters. I don't know, it's a good time. I really loved this book. If you are an old school urban fantasy fan but you want a little more high fantasy feels, this is definitely the way to go. And then my next honorable mention is We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian. This is a really sweet historical romance, although it isn't what you would typically think of when you think of historical romances, because it is set more mid-century, and you get a lot of more modern history than what you typically see. And that's part of what I really love about these books that Cat Sebastian has been writing. It's refreshing to see a different time period in your historical romances than we typically get. It is an romance featuring a couple of newspapermen. One is an old hand at the trade, and he is cynical and grumpy as all get out. And then we have a new newsman that he decides to partner up with on a career level. They become best friends, and then when one of them finds himself with very altered circumstances, he comes to realize that he actually is attracted to this guy, and he's never been attracted to guys before. He already knew that his best friend was gay and he accepted him, but now he is finding himself going through a bisexual awakening, and it's really sweet. I really enjoyed it. It's just a whole lot of like hurt comfort, and the friendship is just so good and so genuine. It's a very sweet mid-century historical romance, and I really enjoyed it. And my final honorable mention is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. I can't even tell you. Okay, so the vlog that I read this in for Halloween, like, you could do a drinking game to how many times I said the word unhinged. My husband still won't let me live it down, but that really is the best word to describe this book and the characters in it. This is just absolutely banana pants, unhinged women running around doing crazy things, and it is a great time. I don't generally go in for thrillers. I either want it to be a mystery or a horror. Thrillers just tend to not be my thing, but this one really, she did the job with this one. I really enjoyed this. So that brings us to my top 10 of the year, starting with number 10, She is a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran. And I love this book. This is a YA sapphic horror story featuring a Vietnamese girl who was raised in America and is spending the summer with her estranged father in Vietnam, trying to help him get his website ready for the B&B that he is currently rehabbing in exchange for college funds. I really appreciated the representation of that feeling where having been raised in America and feeling like you don't necessarily have the connection to your Asian heritage that you feel like maybe you wish you had or that other people think you should have, and just kind of feeling stuck in the middle of not being enough. So this B&B is haunted by the ghosts of generations of people who have died on the premises over the years, and it features a lot of colonialism, and the ghosts definitely stem from the colonialism in Vietnam. And when the main character realizes that no one's going to believe her when she's talking about the hauntings she is experiencing, she takes matters into her own hands. Now, I have seen some people criticize how she goes about it as not being logical, but I want to remind you that this is a YA story about a teenager, and I honestly 100% believe that a teenager would do exactly what she did. When I was a teenager, I might have done what she did. I actually really appreciate the way that she approached not being believed, and I think that it's a really great story. And at number 9, I have Imogen Obviously by Becky Albertalli. So it is about a teenager who has just graduated from high school, and she is going into college, and she's visiting her friend who already has spent the last year in college, trying to get a feel for what college life will be like. And when she gets there, she finds out that her friend has told everybody that she is her ex, and they just remained best friends forever because she felt embarrassed that she hadn't ever had a serious relationship before. And so she goes along with it, and in the process of pretending to be bisexual, she starts to develop feelings for her best friend's roommate and starts realizing that maybe she really does have some attraction to women as well. And so she is exploring her bisexual awakening along with falling in love, and teen angsty things ensue, and it is a great read. I absolutely loved it. So in my number 8 spot, I have Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is a horror. It almost feels like a rom-com with body horror. It's kind of hard to explain. Rachel Harrison definitely has her own way of doing things. She roots the horror of the story in things that happen in real life, and that's part of what makes the horror so realistic. And it is fantastic. It is a werewolf horror, and as she is going through the changes in her body and figuring out her new state of being, she is also being pursued by the creature that bit her in the first place. And at the same time, she is falling back in love with somebody that she had a connection with in her teenage years while trying to help her sister through a difficult pregnancy and separation from her partner. I really loved this book. I 1000% recommend Rachel Harrison, and this is definitely my favorite of her books that I've read so far. And in my number 7 spot, I have Heart Haunt Havoc by Freydis Moon. This novella features a haunted house, and our protagonists are a transgender exorcist and his non-binary client, whose house is possibly the most haunted building that he has exorcised yet. This short story is fraught with secrets and danger, body horror, and an accidental romance. It is fantastic, and I can't wait to read the next book in this series. I have it on my Kindle TBR, and I'm just dying to get to it. If you are interested in giving this a try, these books are available on Kindle Unlimited, and you can try them out there. And then if, like me, you really enjoy it, you can always buy the physical copy. And I mean, look at this cover. It's beautiful. And then the cover for the next book is fantastic as well. I will probably be digging into Freydis Moon's back catalog. I definitely love their way of writing, their word choice, their style, and it's very clean and economical while being extremely effective. And my number 6 spot is Izzy at the End of the World by K.A. Reynolds. So this story features Izzy and her bestest boy pal, Akka, as they find themselves the only people remaining after a flash of lights, and the next morning everybody seems to be gone. The world is covered in this black dust, and there are creatures that have terrifying tentacles and teeth, and she is embarking on a epic quest to try and find out what happened to everybody and see if there's any way for her to bring everyone back. While she is out on the road, Izzy seems to be receiving messages from beyond the grave from her mother, guiding her along the way and helping her figure out how to fight these aliens and how to potentially save the world. And in my number 5 spot, I have Defect by Nino Cipri. And Defect features a character who had called in sick during the events of Fina. It follows Derek, who at first is very awkward and just seems like one of those people who is just overly sold on the company line. But as the story goes on and you get to know him a bit better, things feel a bit more off, and as you go on more and more, you start to realize there's something a little bit strange about Derek. And then he finds himself on a special inventory task force after hours, and things get really crazy from there. It is kind of terrifying in a corporate greed sort of way, and if you have ever been in customer service or retail of any variety, this will definitely resonate with you. It's fantastic, and I really hope you pick it up if you haven't already. Next up is also part of a series. In my number 4 spot, I have Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the second book in the Indian Lake trilogy after My Heart is a Chainsaw. In My Heart is a Chainsaw, you get to follow Jade in this fever dream of a love letter to horror. And this book is about 4 years down the line after the events of My Heart is a Chainsaw. I can't really go into it too much without spoiling My Heart is a Chainsaw, but basically Jade is back in town and she has found herself once again in the manifestation of a slasher movie in real life. In my number 3 spot, I have Boys Run the Riot by Kato Gaku. This is a manga series that I just barely finished. It was actually my final read of 2023, and Volume 1 is my favorite out of the series. This book follows Rio and Jin, who are starting a brand of clothing, and I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to go into spoilers, but if you at all find yourself feeling like you are coming up against unfair barriers to joy and unfair barriers to living your life the way that you want, this is a great book for you. Also, one of the main characters is trans, and this is an own voices representation of a trans experience in Japan, but that's not really the story. The story is about these friends and their fashion brand and them striving to find a way to express themselves in the world and to live their lives the way that they choose and the way that brings them joy. In my number 2 spot, I have Goal Lines and First Times by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This book is a hockey romance featuring a character who has just been informed by his teammates that it is not the most heteronormative thing in the world for you to have practiced making out with your male bestie while growing up. And it has him spinning his tires and trying to figure out what that means for him. So he is exploring his sexual identity as a bisexual man, and then he finds himself conversing with somebody on an app who is our other male protagonist. He has had a string of unsuccessful monogamous relationships. He's been dumped time and time again, and with this most recent girlfriend, he had just started to come around to the idea that he thought he might be demisexual, and as she breaks up with him, she suggests that he might also be gay or bi, and that maybe he should try dating men. So that's how he finds himself on an app with our other main character. Turns out that, unbeknownst to them, he is the older brother of his former captain and best friend. So this is a slow burn romance, and it explores both of our protagonists figuring themselves out as they get to know one another and fall in love. This is the best representation of demisexuality that I have seen so far, and I really, really love both of these characters, and I identify so much with the late in life realization of your bisexuality or pansexuality and the way that it is impacted by your demisexuality. Fantastic book. Absolutely loved it. And then in my number 1 spot, anyone who has been watching this channel probably isn't going to be terribly surprised to find out that my number 1 book for the year of 2023 is one of the books from Murderbot Diaries, and the most recent release in the series. I absolutely adored it. Honestly, I had a hard time picking between this book and its immediate predecessor, Network Effect, since it picks up where Network Effect leaves off, and it features a lot of the things that I loved about Network Effect, but I felt like this story was tighter than Network Effect, and I just progressively love Murderbot more and more. Honestly, I could easily put any book from the series in my #1 spot and be happy with that. If you haven't read the Murderbot Diaries, what are you waiting for? Get on it. Like, even if you aren't a big fan of sci-fi, I think that most people could find Murderbot Diaries enjoyable. It is definitely more of a space opera, cozy sci-fi, and it does have hard sci-fi elements, but nothing that acts as a barrier to the story. It just helps build the world, and it's not overly belabored world building, just enough to flesh out the picture. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love Murderbot and its extraordinarily cynical sense of humor in combination with its intense need to protect all the squishy humans. And how much Murderbot just despises all those nasty, disgusting emotions that any biological being has to deal with. Like, how rude. So those are my top 10 and 3 honorable mentions for the books that I read in 2023. I had a fantastic reading year, and I hope that 2024 is going to be just as fantastic, if not better. I am really looking forward to the coming year and all of the books that I get to read going forward. So I hope you're having a happy new year, and I will see you in my next video. Stars shining bright above me. Night breezes seem to whisper. Sycamore tree. Dream a little dreamer. Somebody who brings in... Oh, how do I explain this? Bobo. Leave that cat alone. Come here, kitty kitty. Yeah? Can I do my video? Yeah? Ready to go? Can you go? Yeah, there you go. I don't remember what they are. Hello? Kitty cat, stop that. No, you're gonna electrocute yourself. Stop chewing on wires.